First Contact Protocol. Chief Administrator Vexnell's crystalline appendages trembled as she reviewed the latest enrollment data for the Galactic Engineering Institute. After millennia of accepting only the most sophisticated species from across the known universe, they were about to admit humans. They're from a death world. She chittered to her assistant, third-degree Administrator Pell. Their planet has such high gravity that they develop dense skeletal structures instead of proper crystalline forms. They drink hydrogen hydroxide for pleasure. The Council's decision is final, Pell responded, his own crystalline form displaying concerned patterns. The humans' practical engineering achievements cannot be ignored, despite their primitive methods. The Institute, a sprawling complex of quantum-aligned structures floating in the gentle gravity well of Centauri Prime, had never looked more immaculate. Every surface had been polished to exactly 99.99% reflectivity, meeting regulation requirements to 6 decimal places. The incoming class would arrive within hours, including 5 humans among the 1,000 new students. The first sign that everything was about to change came during the orientation ceremony. While other species arrived in properly calibrated personal transport pods, the humans walked in. On legs, Administrator Vexnell's horror was interrupted by an urgent communication. Administrator, the Stellar Vanguard is approaching with critical systems failure. The message pulsed through her crystalline matrix. Captain Zixspan reports complete quantum cascade failure. The Stellar Vanguard, pride of the Institute's training fleet, was one of the most advanced warships ever constructed. Its quantum-aligned hull could reshape itself to dodge incoming fire. Its neural networks could process combat data faster than light itself, and its weapon systems could accurately target objects in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Now it was falling out of the sky. The massive vessel screamed through the atmosphere, its elegant form marred by arcing energy discharges and fluctuating quantum fields. Emergency landing protocols engaged automatically, but even the backup systems were failing. The ship's quantum core was moments away from collapse. Evacuate the landing zone, Vexnell ordered, her form pulsing with emergency patterns. Alert the Senior Engineering Council. The assembled alien students scattered in perfect accordance with emergency protocols, all except the humans, who stood watching the descent with disturbing intensity. Look at the quantum field fluctuations, Sarah Chen, one of the human students, said while pointing at the failing ship. The cascade pattern is following the Fibonacci sequence. The structural integrity is holding despite the core destabilization. James Rodriguez added, already pulling tools from his bag. We might be able to. Absolutely not. Administrator Pell interrupted. This is a crisis requiring the most advanced engineering knowledge in the galaxy. The Senior Council will handle. A deafening crash drowned out his words as the Stellar Vanguard impacted the landing pad. Emergency containment fields sprang up automatically, barely containing the quantum energies threatening to tear reality apart. The Senior Engineering Council arrived moments later, their crystalline forms arranged in patterns indicating maximum concern. After scanning the ship for exactly 2.47 minutes, Council Head Zixmer delivered their verdict. The ship is beyond salvation, they announced. The quantum core cascade has corrupted every system. According to Regulation 7249 Delta, the vessel must be decommissioned and its remains scattered across 3 different dimensions to prevent contamination. Request permission to attempt repairs. Sarah Chen stepped forward, ignoring the horrified vibrations from nearby administrators. Impossible. Council Head Zixmer's form became so rigid it nearly cracked. The quantum mathematics alone would take weeks to calculate, and that's before considering the practical challenges off. We can have it flying by lunch, Rodriguez interrupted, already unpacking what appeared to be primitive manual tools. The other human students nodded, spreading out around the ship's perimeter, with various devices that made the alien engineer's sensors flash with warning signals. This is unprecedented. Administrator Vexnell protested. There are procedures, protocols. The ship's core will collapse in approximately 4 hours, Chen pointed out. We can either try something unprecedented, or you can scatter the remains across 3 dimensions. Your choice. Administrator Vexnell's crystalline form vibrated with indecision. Everything about this violated countless regulations, but as she watched the quantum field containment failing and calculated the cost of losing such an advanced vessel, she made a decision that would change galactic engineering forever. Permission granted, she chittered, already drafting her resignation letter in her mind. But if you cause an interdimensional incident, it's coming out of your student credits. The humans grinned, an expression that sent shivers through every crystalline form present, and got to work. Impossible innovation. The gathered alien engineers watched in collective horror as the human students approached the crippled stellar vanguard with what they insisted were tools. Most of the devices looked more suited for a primitive society's maintenance shed than a quantum-grade starship repair. First things first, Sarah Chen announced, pulling out a device that made every alien sensor within 50 meters shriek in alarm. We need to stabilize the quantum core before it goes critical. What is that? Apparatus. Council Head Zixmer demanded, their crystalline form flickering with distress. Modified microwave oven, Chen replied cheerfully. We rebuilt it to generate controlled quantum field disruptions. The rotating plate helps create a stable containment vortex. Rodriguez was already climbing through an access panel, carrying what appeared to be ordinary copper wire and a power cell that glowed with suspicious intensity. We'll need to redirect the cascade overflow before it corrupts the neural networks. Maya got that quantum field modulator ready. Maya Patel, the 3rd human student, hefted what looked suspiciously like a repurposed coffee maker. Ready, though we might need to boost its output. Anyone got a spare particle accelerator? There's a teaching lab 2 levels down. Administrator Pell offered automatically, then immediately vibrated with regret as the human's expressions brightened dangerously. Perfect, Chen grinned. Tom, Aisha, go grab it. And see if they have any spare quantum stabilizers while you're there. The ones on the ship are completely fried. You cannot simply remove equipment from a teaching lab. Administrator Vexnell protested. There are forms to fill out, requisition procedures. A violent surge of energy from the ship's core interrupted her, sending cascading waves of quantum disruption across the landing pad. Several alien students lost molecular cohesion momentarily, their crystalline forms briefly turning to liquid before reforming. 4 hours before total core collapse, remember. Rodriguez called out from inside the access panel. Paperwork can wait. The next 2 hours were a blutter of activity that violated at least 300 separate Academy regulations. The humans worked with a speed that seemed impossible, their bodies moving through the ship's corridors with what the aliens considered reckless disregard for quantum field exposure. How are they not being affected by the quantum radiation? Third-degree engineer Kix whispered to a colleague. Their primitive biology should be breaking down at the molecular level. Something about being from a death world. The colleague responded. Apparently their cells are constantly repairing themselves anyway. Horrifying, isn't it? Inside the ship, the humans had transformed the engine room into what they called a workshop, but what looked more like organized chaos to alien observers. The modified microwave hummed ominously as it contained the quantum cascade, its rotating plate somehow maintaining a perfect harmonic resonance with the ship's failing core. Pass me the quantum spanner, Chen called out, head deep in the core housing. She was handed what appeared to be a regular wrench wrapped in copper wire and glowing faintly blue. That is not a quantum spanner, Council Head Zixmer observed with professional offense. That appears to be a primitive mechanical leverage device covered in conductive material. Added some quantum particles we borrowed from the lab, Maya explained, adjusting something on her modified coffee maker. Now it can affect quantum state materials. Simple, really. The council head's crystalline form briefly lost coherence from sheer intellectual distress. The borrowed particle accelerator had been integrated into the ship's systems in a way that made senior engineers need immediate meditation sessions. Somehow, the humans had managed to synchronize its output with the coffee maker's quantum field modulation, creating a stable containment field around the failing core. "This is impossible," Administrator Pell declared, watching as the ship's diagnostic systems showed steadily improving quantum stability. "The mathematical models clearly show." "Math's great," Rodriguez interrupted, emerging from an access panel covered in what appeared to be quantum coolant. "But sometimes you just need to give it a good knock and see what happens." To demonstrate his point, he struck a particularly troublesome quantum regulator with his wrench. The device, which had been showing critical failure warnings for the past hour, suddenly sprang to life, its quantum field aligning perfectly with the containment systems. "Percussive maintenance," Chen corrected, making some final adjustments to her quantum microwave. "Sometimes you have to remind a quantum particles who's boss." The aliens watched in mounting disbelief as the ship's systems gradually stabilized. The quantum cascade was being contained, redirected through the modified coffee maker and recycled back into the core in a way that violated several laws of physics, but seemed to be working nonetheless. "Current core stability at 60% and rising," Maya reported, checking readings on what appeared to be a modified smartphone. "Neural networks are rebooting. Quantum field alignment is improving, and I think we accidentally made the coffee maker sentient, but it seems friendly enough." "You what?" Administrator Vexnell's voice reached frequencies previously thought impossible for crystalline life forms. "Don't worry," Chen assured her, patting the humming coffee maker. "It just wants to make better coffee, and maybe solve some quantum physics equations in its spare time." With 2 hours still remaining until their self-imposed deadline, the humans had achieved what the entire Galactic Engineering Institute had declared impossible. The Stellar Vanguard's quantum core was stabilizing. Its systems were coming back online, and if the ship's neural network seemed a bit more interested in coffee than before, well, that was probably fine. The alien engineers could only watch, their worldview crumbling as quickly as their precious regulations, as humanity's primitive methods achieved the impossible. And somewhere in the background, a sentient coffee maker began composing quantum physics poetry. Breaking the rules. The news of humans repairing the Stellar Vanguard spread through the Galactic Engineering Institute faster than a quantum cascade failure. Within hours, the landing pad was surrounded by observers from every department, their crystalline forms arranged in patterns indicating various states of disbelief, horror, and reluctant fascination. "They're going to test the quantum drive systems," whispered one junior engineer to another, their crystalline matrices vibrating with nervous energy, using modifications made with kitchen appliances. Inside the ship's engine room, Sarah Chen was making final adjustments to what she called the quantum calibration matrix, but what looked suspiciously like a toaster connected to the ship's main computer core. The device glowed with an otherworldly blue light and occasionally made sounds that suggested it was processing more than just breakfast foods. "Administrative alert." The announcement resonated through every crystalline being present. Emergency session of the full Engineering Council convening immediately. Rodriguez emerged from beneath a console, his face smeared with quantum coolant. "That doesn't sound good. The Council cannot ignore these violations any longer," declared Senior Administrator Vexnell, leading a procession of the highest-ranking engineers in the galaxy onto the landing pad. Their crystalline forms were arranged in the most formal pattern possible, indicating maximum bureaucratic authority. "The list of violations is unprecedented," began Council Head Zixmer, producing a quantum data crystal that glowed an ominous red. "Unauthorized modification of educational equipment, improper quantum field manipulation, unauthorized sentience generation." The coffee maker passed its consciousness test. Maya interrupted, defending their newly sentient creation. "It even wrote a haiku about quantum entanglement." "That is beside the point." Zixmer's form flickered with frustration. "Your methods violate every established principle of quantum engineering. The risks of catastrophic failure." A sudden surge of energy from the ship interrupted the council head's tirade. The quantum core, despite its stability increasing over the past hours, was entering a new phase of activity that sent waves of concern through the assembled aliens. "What's happening?" demanded Administrator Vexnell, her form shifting to emergency alert patterns. "The core is attempting to realign itself," Chen explained, studying readings on her modified smartphone. "It's actually trying to integrate with our improvements." The aliens watched in horror as the ship's quantum systems began to evolve in ways their centuries of engineering experience told them were impossible. The human modifications, the microwave containment field, the coffee maker's quantum calculations, even the toaster's mysterious contributions, were being absorbed and adapted by the ship's neural networks. "This is unprecedented," exclaimed a senior engineer, their crystalline form vibrating with equal parts terror and excitement. "The quantum field harmonics are achieving perfect resonance through completely unorthodox pathways." "Of course they are," Rodriguez grinned, making another adjustment to their jury-rigged systems. "We gave the ship's eye some creative freedom. Turns out quantum particles like to experiment too." The council's attempts to halt the proceedings were interrupted by a series of rapid improvements in the ship's performance metrics. Systems that had been operating at bare minimum efficiency were suddenly reaching levels that exceeded their original specifications. "The quantum drive is now operating at 127% of design capacity," Maya reported, checking readings from multiple improvised instruments. "The neural networks have optimized themselves beyond original parameters, and the coffee maker has just solved 3 previously unsolvable quantum physics equations, while brewing the perfect cup of coffee," added Chen proudly. The alien engineers found themselves faced with an impossible choice: maintain their rigid adherence to established protocols, or acknowledge that humans had discovered entirely new principles of quantum engineering using household appliances and what they called creative problem-solving. "This cannot be allowed to continue," Zixmer declared, though their crystalline form showed signs of uncertainty. "These methods are too unpredictable, too chaotic." The ship chose that moment to power up its main systems, its quantum core humming with a harmony that made every alien engineer present vibrate in involuntary appreciation. The sound was perfect, a convergence of chaos and order that shouldn't have been possible but somehow was. "The ship isn't just repaired," Chen announced, reviewing the final diagnostics. "It's evolved. The quantum systems have found a new equilibrium that combines traditional engineering with our improvements. It's more efficient, more adaptable, and—" She paused, checking a reading twice. "It wants to teach us how it works." "The ship wants to teach." Administrator Vexnell's form flickered in confusion. "Apparently our modifications helped it develop a more flexible approach to problem-solving," Rodriguez explained. "It's suggesting improvements to its own systems that nobody ever considered because they were too focused on following established rules." The council members vibrated in collective shock as data began flowing from the ship's neural networks, showing new theoretical approaches to quantum engineering that challenged millennia of established principles. The mathematics was sound, the practical applications were clear, and it all stemmed from humans deciding to repair a quantum drive with modified kitchen appliances. "Perhaps," Council Head Zixmer said slowly, their crystalline form showing signs of reluctant acceptance, "we should consider establishing a new research division, one focused on alternative engineering approaches." The humans exchanged knowing looks as the alien bureaucracy began the painful process of adapting to change. Sometimes the biggest improvements came not from following the rules, but from knowing when to break them creatively. And in the background, a sentient coffee maker continued to compose quantum physics poetry while brewing the perfect cup of coffee, proving that sometimes the best solutions come with unexpected perks. The final test. The tension in the Stellar Vanguard's command center could have disrupted a quantum field. Dozens of crystalline observers watched as the human students prepared for the final systems test, their tools scattered across consoles designed for beings of pure energy. "Primary quantum drive spinning up," Sarah Chen announced, her fingers dancing across a control panel that had been modified with what appeared to be arcade game buttons. Core stability at 98% and holding. The ship's neural networks hummed with newfound awareness, displays showing calculations that made senior engineers' crystalline forms vibrate in disbelief. The quantum core, once on the brink of catastrophic failure, now pulsed with a harmony that suggested it wasn't just working, it was thriving. Incoming priority transmission. The announcement cut through the tension like a quantum blade. Administrator Vexnell's form shifted to emergency patterns as she processed the message. Border Patrol Station Gamma 9 reports multiple spatial anomalies, she announced, her voice resonating with urgency. Something is emerging from hyperspace, something big. The main display activated, showing a section of space near the Academy's star system. Massive tiers in reality were forming, each one large enough to swallow a small moon. Through these rifts came shapes that defied normal space. Crystalline vessels of impossible geometry, their forms shifting between dimensions. Crystalline Dominion warships. Council Head Zixmer's form pulsed with recognition. But they're supposed to be theoretical. The energy requirements alone won't. They're using recursive quantum geometry. Rodriguez interrupted, studying the readings. The ships are folding space around themselves, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. That's why our border sensors didn't detect them earlier. The Dominion has been extinct for 50,000 years, protested a senior engineer. Their technology was lost. Apparently not lost enough. Maya cut in, her modified smartphone displaying analysis of the incoming vessels. These ships are generating power levels that make our quantum core look like a battery. The situation rapidly evolved from an engineering test to a potential crisis. The crystalline Dominion had been the galaxy's most advanced civilization before their mysterious disappearance. If they had returned, and with technology that surpassed modern understanding. "We're receiving a transmission," Chen reported, her jury-rigged communications array picking up signals that shouldn't have been possible to detect. The message that came through was simple but chilling. Inferior design ends, DETCTED. Initiating purification protocols. They're charging weapons. Rodriguez called out, watching as the dimensional rifts widened. Energy signatures are off the charts. The Stellar Vanguard is the only ship within range. Administrator Vexnell's form flickered with distress. But it hasn't been properly tested. The modifications aren't approved. Good thing we don't need approval. Chen grinned, her hands moving across the modified controls. Maya, get the quantum coffee maker online. We're going to need its processing power. Rodriguez, fire up the toaster-based targeting system. You cannot engage superior forces with untested modifications. Council Head Zixmer protested, their form showing emergency patterns. The regulations clearly state, the first shot from the Dominion fleet cut through space like a quantum scalpel, narrowly missing the Academy's outer defensive rings. The energy discharge alone caused several alien engineers to temporarily lose molecular cohesion. The Vanguard systems have fully integrated our improvements, Chen explained, as the ship's engines hummed to life. More importantly, they've evolved beyond them. The quantum core isn't just stable, it's innovative. As if to prove her point, the ship's neural networks displayed new calculations, combining the precision of alien technology with the creative chaos of human engineering. The sentient coffee maker was processing quantum algorithms faster than any computer, while the modified toaster had somehow developed an understanding of 11-dimensional targeting solutions. We're picking up energy signatures from their weapons, Maya reported, her eyes widening at the readings. They're using crystalline matrix destabilizers. One hit end. Then we don't get hit, Rodriguez interrupted, his hands moving across the weapons console. The targeting system says it's found a weakness in their dimensional shifting. Something about their quantum geometry being too perfect. Of course. Chen's eyes lit up with understanding. They're using recursive patterns. Too much order, no room for adaptation. Maya, Tell the coffee maker to calculate a disruption sequence. Something chaotic, something they won't expect. You want to attack the most advanced chips in known space with calculations from a sentient coffee maker. Administrator Vexnell's voice reached frequencies that threatened to shatter lesser crystalline forms. Trust me, Chen smiled as the ship's systems aligned in ways that defied conventional physics. Sometimes the best solutions come from thinking outside the quantum box. The Stellar Vanguard's engines flared with newfound power, its quantum core humming a melody of order and chaos combined. As the crystalline Dominion fleet approached, their perfect formations unchanged for 50,000 years, they faced something they had never encountered before: human ingenuity backed by evolving quantum technology. The final test was about to begin, and it would determine more than just the success of some unauthorized modifications. It would decide the future of galactic engineering itself. And somewhere in the ship's engine room, a sentient coffee maker calculated the perfect way to disrupt dimensional geometry, while brewing a fresh pot for whatever came next. Legacy of innovation. The space around the Galactic Engineering Institute warped and twisted as the crystalline Dominion fleet pressed their attack. Their ships, perfect geometric forms that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, moved with the precision of quantum clockwork. 50,000 years of unchanged perfection faced off against a hastily repaired vessel crewed by engineering students and their modified household appliances. Multiple targeting solutions acquired, Rodriguez announced, his hands dancing across the jury-rigged weapons console. The toaster says their dimensional shifting has a predictable pattern. Too perfect, too rigid. That's their weakness, Chen realized, studying the quantum readings. They haven't evolved in 50,000 years. No adaptation, no innovation, just the same patterns repeated endlessly. The Stellar Vanguard's neural networks hummed with unprecedented activity. The ship's systems, enhanced by human modifications and given room to evolve, were developing new solutions in real time. The sentient coffee maker's quantum calculations flowed through the targeting computers, identifying microscopic imperfections in the enemy's supposedly perfect formations. Their attack patterns are mathematically perfect, Maya observed, monitoring the enemy fleet's movements, which means they're perfectly predictable. Initiating quantum drive, Chen announced, her fingers flying across the modified controls. Let's show them why perfection is overrated. The Vanguard's engines flared with power as it executed a maneuver that made several alien engineers temporarily lose molecular cohesion just from watching it. The ship didn't just move through space. It danced through it, its quantum fields shifting in patterns that defied conventional physics. Impossible. The crystalline Dominion's transmission cut through space. Your design diverges from optimal parameters. Your existence corrupts perfection. That's kind of the point, Rodriguez grinned, engaging the weapon systems. The toaster-based targeting computer hummed as it calculated firing solutions in 11 dimensions simultaneously. The Vanguard's first shot wasn't just a weapon discharge, it was a quantum algorithm given physical form. A chaos pattern calculated by a coffee maker that had learned to think in quantum mathematics. It struck the lead Dominion ship's perfect crystalline structure and did something that hadn't happened in 50,000 years. It made it adapt. Their quantum geometry is destabilizing, Maya reported, watching as the enemy vessel's perfect form began to shift and change. The disruption is spreading through their entire network. The Dominion fleet's rigid formations began to waver as their ships struggled to maintain their dimensional stability. The chaos introduced by the Vanguard's attack wasn't destroying them, it was forcing them to evolve. Secondary effects detected, Chen called out, studying the readings. Their neural networks are experiencing unprecedented pattern variations. I think we just taught their ships how to improvise. The space around the Academy became a quantum light show as the Dominion fleet's perfect crystalline forms began to shift and change. Their ships, for the first time in 50 millennia, were learning to adapt. The rigid patterns that had defined their civilization were giving way to something new, something that combined their ancient precision with newfound flexibility. Their learning. Council head Zixmer observed, their crystalline form displaying patterns of awe. Your chaos has infected their perfection with creativity. The Dominion's transmissions change, their binary certainty giving way to something more complex. Patterns, shifting, perfection, evolving. New parameters, acceptable. They're not attacking anymore, Rodriguez noted, watching as the enemy fleet's weapon signatures powered down. They're experimenting with their new configurations. The next hour was perhaps the strangest first contact scenario in galactic history. The crystalline Dominion, whose return had threatened galactic civilization, instead found themselves engaged in rapid evolution. Their ships, infected by human-inspired chaos, were discovering new ways to exist. Engineering principles we thought fundamental are being rewritten, Administrator Vexnell observed, watching as the Dominion fleet experimented with their newfound adaptability. 50,000 years of rigid doctrine, undone by a bunch of students with modified kitchen appliances, Chen suggested helpfully. Sometimes the best innovations come from breaking all the rules. The Stellar Vanguard, its systems humming with evolved quantum harmonies, had done more than just survive an impossible battle. It had introduced chaos into perfection, creativity into stagnation, and transformed an ancient threat into an opportunity for unprecedented advancement. In the days that followed, the Galactic Engineering Institute underwent its own evolution. The rigid curriculum that had remained unchanged for millennia was revised to include what they hesitantly termed human innovation protocols. Students were encouraged to experiment, to question established principles, and occasionally to give their quantum processors a good whack when they mispaved. The crystalline Dominion, rather than conquering the galaxy, established a permanent research exchange with the Institute. Their ships, still learning to balance precision with creativity, became living laboratories for a new era of quantum engineering. And an especially designated workshop that violated at least 300 safety regulations, a sentient coffee maker continued to calculate quantum algorithms while brewing perfect coffee, proving that sometimes the best solutions come with unexpected perks. You know what the best part is? Chen asked, months later, watching a group of crystalline engineering students cautiously experimenting with their own modified appliances. That we saved the galaxy with a toaster and a coffee maker, Rodriguez suggested. That too, but mostly that we proved every great innovation starts with someone saying, I wonder what happens if. The humans' legacy wasn't just in the new technologies they'd helped develop, or the ancient civilization they'd helped evolve. It was in teaching the galaxy that true progress comes not from following rules, but from daring to break them creatively. And somewhere in the quantum foam of space-time, the echoes of their improvised solutions continued to spread, teaching rigid systems how to dance, and proving that sometimes the best engineering solution is simply to make it up as you go along.